we traveled to 80 different countries, met all kinds of wonderful people that are talented, well-educated, personable. But the difference between those who succeed a little and those who succeed a lot is one thing and one only, and that is the ability to become what we now call a master of asking. And what happens is, so we said, look, how do you ask? And you ask yourself, you ask others, and you ask God. Even finding the title to a book, when Jack and I were trying to find Chicken Soup, in our respective houses, we said 400 times, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title, mega best-selling title. And the minute you program, it's called a thought command to your deeper, innermost, highermost subconscious, or your higher self, however you want to define it, it's got to come. So at 2:30 in the morning, Jack calls me from his home to mine and says, chicken soup. I said, for the soul. And we had it. The point is, we're in this first lockdown time in human history. 8 billion of us are locked down. Everybody's got to ask God. Our subtitle is ask, the bridge from your dreams to your destiny. And we say everyone's got a destiny. The job is to find it. And a lot of people got to pivot. They got to reinvent. They got to reorient, rediscover themselves. And we're saying, God, what's your destiny for me? What is it that you want me to do to fulfill my purpose? Assuming you've got a spiritual set, and we think everybody's intrinsically spiritual. 2 questions you got, but the first one is, we pray and meditate together every day, beginning our day for 1 hour, and we go through all of this exactly like we've said, out loud with each other and figure it out. Second part, ask others. When I was bankrupt and upside down and wanted to kill myself back in 1974, so we're talking about 50 years ago, is that I woke up and I said, well, I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that would make a life-changing difference. Went to my roommates in Hicksville, Long Island, New York, and I asked, I said, any of you guys know somebody that's young, not a celebrity, not a doctor, not a lawyer, not a famous person? They said, yeah, there's a guy a few years older than you talking to all the realtors. He's a wow. I race out there to Hauppauge, Long Island, New York. This guy, Chip Collins, wows people for 3 hours. I asked him, I said, can I take you to lunch? He said, I'd love a free lunch, kid, but you're not going to make it. 1 in 1,000, you'll make it in business. He taught me what to do, and I did 1,000 talks a year for the first 3 years. And then people said, do you have it as a book? And it wasn't our ask book, but the first book I wrote was Stand Up, Speak Out, and Win, because people said, I got to have that story. And I didn't say this is an international bestseller, a New York Times bestseller, a Wall Street Journal bestseller, an Amazon that didn't exist yet. I said, this is my bestseller. Everybody wanted it signed. I tripled my income and in 1 year by having a little book, and sold at $10 each. The book cost retail to them, the audience. That's the only place I was selling it. I sold 20,000 copies, so I made 200,000. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Back then, that's like $2 million. So I was smoking. Not only did we do all the writing, everything we knew about Aston, we did the full research at Harvard and Stanford and all that, and it corroborated what we thought. Then we interviewed 26 what we call master askers. As a matter of fact, we're inviting all of your people to come for free to askthebookclub.com. We're going to have the biggest virtual book club because we want people to master the discovery of their own destinies. But we had a guy that found his destiny out of a problem, which a lot of people are existing in right now, and that is Jim Stovall. He was going to be an NFL player. He's big, strong, got recruited, and the doctor said, kid, you're going to be blind in 6 months. He's now self-incarcerated in a 9x12 room with a telephone, a television, and no real way to get out. And his parents say, look, Jimmy, just go down to the blind meeting. He sits next to this woman who's also blind, a court stenographer, and they get to talking, and because there's an echo chamber of negativity, which we're saying today, given the problem of COVID, you got to shut off the negativity after 15 minutes. But he says, I used to love to watch TV and see somebody throw a right hook. Somebody ought to narrate it. She said, Jim, you and I are somebody. Why don't we do something? And that's what everybody out there has got to do. Because I say an entrepreneur is a problem solver for a profit. They created narrative TV, which now has 14 million people paying $10 a month to hear what's happening on TV. Because you're blind or nearsighted or something, you should be able to see that. But then he wrote a book called The Ultimate Gift, which I wrote the foreword to, and said there's got to be a movie. And so we interviewed him for the book, and he says, I now write books that I can't see, and I write movies that made $100 million that I can't watch. And so what I'm trying to do is get everybody out of their pity party with a story of a guy that had it worse than you, because everyone goes, you don't know, I broke my fingernail today, or I can't go get my nails done or my hair done, and you don't know if this is tragic. I don't know if I can live. I wrote a whole book called You Have a Book in You, and I think everybody at home and in lockdown has to write a book, and I think you guys would agree, because you really got to do what Socrates said. the unexamined life isn't worth living. And you got to examine yourself and say, well, what is it? Back to her question, that first one, how well do you know yourself and what you want, so what you're going to do and what the outcome can be? By the way, this thing about other is that obviously you're the other for a lot of these people that want to be authors, and they got to start by saying I'm an author before they become one, because you got to be it to do it, to have it. We know that. But the fact is, every one of us needs an interface. So we're on one podcast twice with the guy down in Texas, Scott Carson, you may know him, and he said, look, everybody, somebody that's depressed, despondent, disconsolate, or probably suicidal, being locked down for 6 months. I want you to buy 10 of Mark and Crystal's book, Ask the Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny. I want you to have them read it, and then I want you to have them interface with them and ask, are you vulnerable enough to grow yourself out of this? Because whatever number I give you is arbitrary, but 30 to 50% of people are not going to have the job to go back to that they were doing before. Whatever it is. I mean, like our kids and grandkids just got back from flying, and the airport's got only 20% of the stores open anymore in Orlando and Cleveland, coming back to Arizona. They just were here a few minutes ago after our first podcast. And they said they couldn't believe it. There's no restaurants open, and they're not thinking they're going to open them. And the only thing you can buy there is a bottle of water. And I go, holy cow, there's a lot of people that are unemployed. I was on the board of the world's biggest airline, Evergreen Airline, privately held. And so I am really sensitive to pilots not having a place to go to other pilots. So that's why I'm saying you've got to ask yourself, how do I reinvent myself? How do I reorient myself? How do I re-engineer myself? And then our book teaches how to reverse engineer yourself so you get to exactly where you want to go, because most people have never done what you're saying, that VIP. Ask the hard questions of how do you want to sculpt yourself? Like when we were in Florence, the question at Michelangelo, they said, well, how you make it David? He said, I chip you out everything that's not David. You and I got to chip out all the imperfections to say, how do we fulfill our destiny?